Ravens fan, what happened with Diontae Johnson is something no one saw coming. After a season filled with ups and downs, the wide receiver was cut by the Baltimore Ravens. But what led to this drastic decision? Why did such a promising player reach this point? And what does it mean for the Ravens' future? Stay with me, because in this video, you're going to uncover all the details behind this release and the impact it could have on the season. Get ready, because what happened behind the scenes is even more surprising than you're going to be shocked when you understand the real reason for his departure. Don't miss it. Go Ravens! Diontae Johnson arrived at the Ravens with high expectations. The team traded for him from the Panthers, believing he could be a key piece in their offense. However, things started to sour quickly. Johnson struggled to fit into the offensive scheme and couldn't deliver the performance everyone hoped. Within weeks, the situation became untenable, leading the team to place him on the release list. This decision wasn't just about his low performance on the field. Off the field, the problems grew. Johnson got involved in controversies, like refusing to take the field against the Eagles in Week 13, even when the team needed replacements due to injuries. This incident led to his suspension, and the team made it clear that he was no longer in their plans. It was a breach of trust that sealed his fate in Baltimore, marking an end to a tenure more defined by controversies than results. Now, Johnson is on the waiver wire and available for any team to pick up, but his reputation is tarnished. Despite having been a productive receiver in the past, his attitude and lack of impact with the Ravens raised doubts about his future. When we look at his performance in the few games with the Ravens, it's clear why this partnership didn't. When Diontae Johnson was brought to the Ravens, there was a lot of excitement. He arrived on a team with big ambitions for the season, and the Ravens hoped he'd become an important part of their offense, especially in a position that already included players like Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. What seemed like a strategic move to strengthen their receiver core quickly became more complicated than anyone expected. The trade, involving a 2025 fifth-round draft pick, seemed like a fresh start for Johnson, but reality was more challenging. Upon arriving in Baltimore, Johnson faced a very different situation than what he experienced in Pittsburgh, Carolina. The team had a competitive roster with established players, and he didn't have the chance to be the number one in the offense, as he might have expected. With little space in the game plan, Johnson's dissatisfaction. In just 4 games, he had only 1 reception for 6 yards, and his limited involvement made him question his role within the team. Even after the trade, Johnson seemed unable to adapt, leading to increasing tension between him and the franchise. When this tension reached its peak, it became clear that the relationship between Johnson and the Ravens was on the rocks. His dissatisfaction with his role ultimately led to his suspension and eventual release. The next chapter of his career is uncertain, and it's hard to imagine how he'll be viewed by other teams after this dramatic turn of events. When Diontae Johnson refused to take the field during the game against the Eagles, his situation with the Ravens reached an irreversible point. This wasn't just a simple disagreement between player and team. It was a clear display of discontent that shattered any remaining bond. Bateman, who had been injured, was the starting receiver ahead of Johnson, but his refusal to step in when asked created an internal crisis within the team. Johnson's attitude caught everyone's attention, and it was something the Ravens couldn't ignore. After this refusal, the Ravens decided to suspend Johnson for the next game, an easy win against the Giants. For the team, this was a way to show that his behavior wouldn't be tolerated, and the suspension sent a clear message that he wasn't part of the team's immediate plans. This move revealed a lot about the internal situation in Baltimore and how, in just a few months, his relationship with the team had soured. He was no longer seen as a useful addition, but as a disruptive player who contributed more to distractions than to results. Now, after the suspension, Johnson's fate with the Ravens was effectively sealed. His career with the team ended there, and he's now on the open market, waiting to see what his next opportunity, if any, will be. His behavior on the field is likely to have a lasting impact on his value, both in Baltimore and across the league. Will another team take a chance on him? That's something only time will tell, but his next chance will certainly be much harder to come by. Alright, we're past the halfway point in the video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't liked this video yet. It's super important for YouTube to keep showing you my content, so go ahead and leave a like. It's free and helps a lot. Thanks, let's keep going. Before all the drama in Baltimore, Diontae Johnson had a respectable track record with the Steelers. During his time in Pittsburgh, he was a reliable receiver, able to put up impressive numbers, including a season with over 1,000 receiving yards. Johnson stood out for his ability to create separation with his quick routes and for being a consistent presence on the field, something that many teams would have loved to have. His ability to move with agility and find space on the field was what made him stand out, being one of Big Ben Roethlisberger's top targets. However, not everything was perfect. Johnson also faced criticism, particularly for issues with drops and inconsistency. His 2022 season, for instance, was a nightmare, as he failed to score a single touchdown, which is almost unheard of for a talented receiver. Additionally, the inconsistent play of rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett made things even harder, and this reflected on Johnson's performance. Despite this positive history, problems started to arise, and he eventually requested a trade. After being traded to Carolina and later to the Ravens, Johnson's shine seemed to fade. Despite being a valuable piece with the Steelers, his struggles to find stability in Baltimore now make his future even more uncertain. His name is now tarnished, and it will be difficult for him to regain the trust of other teams, especially after the issues he faced. The incident where Johnson refused to play during the game against the Eagles had a far greater impact than any poor performance in the early weeks. When a player refuses to contribute, no matter the situation, it affects not only the team, but also the league's perception of it. This kind of attitude raises doubts about the player's character and commitment, which are crucial when building a winning. For many teams, Johnson is now seen as a risky bet, a player whose attitude both on and off the field could be as unpredictable as his performance. With this behavior, Johnson's chances of landing a favorable contract for the next season have drastically diminished. Even with the talent he showed in Pittsburgh, it's hard to imagine him securing a big deal in the free agent. The negative attention he received in Baltimore and his refusal to help the team will certainly affect his stand. Now, he'll need to prove much more than before to earn the trust of any team. The road to a long-term contract seems far off, and he may be forced to accept a prove-it deal where he'll have to demonstrate his ability to contribute before securing a better payout. However, the fact that he's 28 and still has the potential to be a good receiver shouldn't be over. At 28, he's still young enough to make a recovery and have an impact if he lands with the right team. But at the same time, his next opportunity will be much harder to come by, and he'll have to deal with the consequences of this rebellious attitude. After all the issues faced with the Ravens, the lingering question is, what does the future hold for Diontae Johnson in the NFL? His days in Baltimore ended abruptly, and now he's on the waiver wire, waiting for a new team. Johnson's market value has been severely impacted by his refusal to play and his conflicts with the Ravens. For most teams, he's now considered a high-risk bet. His history as a skilled receiver with potential production still has the ability to attract some teams, but the distrust surrounding his behavior on and off the field may outweigh his actual ability. If any team is willing to give him a chance, it will likely be with a low-cost contract, where he will need to prove he can adapt to what the team needs, both on and off the field. While Johnson's future may seem unclear, he still has the potential to be productive, as he was in previous seasons with the Steelers. However, he needs to do much more than just show his talent. He needs to regain the trust of coaches, teammates, and any franchises that may consider. Ultimately, the lesson for Diontae Johnson is that he has a second chance, but only if he shows more commitment to the team and controls his behavior. His journey in the NFL is not over, but the path to becoming relevant again will be tougher and will require a lot of dedication, and most importantly, humility. What happens next will depend on how he handles this difficult phase and the opportunity that any team might give him. Now that you understand the details of Diontae Johnson's release, it's impossible not to wonder, what does this mean for the Ravens moving forward? Will this decision open the door for new talent to rise? Or are we simply witnessing the end of a gamble that didn't pay off? Leave your opinion in the comments, because we want to know what you think about this move. And, of course, if you don't want to miss any updates on the team, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.